you want anything from the shop?
Cornetto.
You want anything from the shop?
Cornetto.
We've made it to the end. The World's End, part 3 of the Cornetto Trilogy. And this was very interesting for me. I'll go into more detail at the end, something that I found out before watching them, that I think really changed how I saw the film, but I do want to get into everything else first. So, Gary King. He is... I like to call him Sean without a purpose, literally a rebel without a cause. At least Sean was trying to get some semblance of a life together, he had a job, etc. And Nicholas Angel, in fact all of Stanford, is so far removed from Gary King, it's untrue. But Gary is very much a free spirit. He is still the young man who failed to complete the Golden Mile years ago with all of his friends, who, by the way, I only noticed this time watching, have courtly names. He's King. You've got Peter Page, you've got Knightley, Andy Knightley, Chamberlain's in there. All of these kind of courtly names, which I never picked up on at first. It's only the most recent viewing that I suddenly realised, which I thought was amazing. Nice thematic linking, and the fact that the beer they're drinking is called Crowning Glory. It's all very kind of thematic there, and this is again part of the whole Cornetto tapestry. If there's one thing these last 3 films have taught me, it's that they're so well interwoven. You know, we have the setups, we have the clever jokes. There's many videos out there saying, you know, oh, this pub means this pub means this, like the mermaid, you know, the marmalade sandwich are like the sirens. Mermaids, close analogy there. The good companions, which I think was the one with like the theatre masks, where they're all like pretending to be all happy. The cross hands is where the fight happens, which involves lots of arm blocks, etc. Like I said, I'm not going to go into it in all detail like I haven't in the others. You know, I do like to touch on it, I like to say how good it is. But this one, you know, I think really sort of showed the tapestry for what it was, because we could see things that were followed through in all of them. We had, you know, the fence jumping in the first one. We had the flip to that in Hot Fuzz, which I didn't mention last time. I do apologise, I said I would. But this time we have them jumping over the hedge and falling. We've gone back to the pratfall. You know, we've kind of come back to Simon Pegg sort of falling over. But we have things like Rhea Shearsmith being in the mirror group of Shaun of the Dead and being one of the collaborators. We have Rafe Spall appearing in all 3. There's so much of the tapestry that you just mentally, right in the back of your mind, you go, oh, but you don't really make a big thing of it. But without it, I think these films would be less. It's part of what really cements them as a loved series of films in a lot of people's mind. I mean, I will say, I did read something that I'm glad I wasn't the only one on. There are people who, when they first saw The World's End, were like, it's no Hot Fuzz, it's definitely no Shaun of the Dead. But second viewing, they were like, okay. And repeated viewings, I think, have, you know, sort of really helped to bring people to it. I think they've understood it better. I think the first time, because it was so vastly different, you know, it's gone into a very different area. There's a lot more sort of bombast towards the end, particularly. It was a very different beast, and there was such a massive, you know, difference in time. So I think that's what shocked people. But like I say, coming back to it without these expectations of the other 2, I think has really helped people enjoy it more. It's what made me enjoy it more. But of course, like I say, you know, Gary just doesn't have his life together. His friends do. His friends are the Petes of Shaun of the Dead. You know, like they've got everything sorted. Well, actually, Pete wasn't even quite at this level. He was still living with Sean and Ed. But, you know, they've got marriages, they've got mortgages, they've got motor cars. I was trying to think of something else beginning with them. They've got mini children. I can't think of any more. But their lives are, well, I mean, a lot of them own or are partners, like with Andy, you know, in a business or a law firm in his case. They've got their lives together on the surface, at least. But what's Gary done with his life? We don't even know. He's not even changed his car. It's the exact same car he's had for years, although it sounds like it's a bit of a ship of Theseus, I believe, you know, where if you change out one plank over time, like, you know, you keep replacing a plank at a time, by the end of it, is it the same boat? In this case, is it the same car? So it may not actually be the beast anymore on a technicality. But this is how much stuck in the past he is. And there's, again, like I said before, I'm not going to touch on all the clever moments, but they go past a sort of charity shop, I'm guessing, or something, or like kind of a bricky-bracky kind of shop called Past Times that they're walking past, and they mention it, leaving the past behind. And that's really what they're all trying to do, apart from Gary. He's trying to relive it. And, unfortunately that brings them into the sphere of this situation with the network, where slowly but surely parts of their group are replaced or go missing, and they start to learn that everything is not as it seems. It's kind of got similarities to Sanford in that way. There's this perfection as an ideal that's being portrayed. It's meant to be this idealistic, this idyllic place. No crime, no one rocking up the apple cart or anything like that. Everything's perfect, everything's nice, everyone gets on, everyone's happy, everyone's conforming, it's all homogeneous. It's star booking, as Steve says. And that's it. This conformity, this homogeneity, is the antithesis to Gary King. It is not something he wants in life. He cannot deal with this, especially as it's ruining his plan to finally get something he's been after for years, decades. He wants this more than life itself in so many ways. And, he at the detriment to his friends, he will persevere and he will push, even when things are really going wrong. People are getting hurt, people are disappearing and getting replaced. But he still will not give up on his goals, which in a way I kind of respect him for, but I think, cost-benefit, I don't think it works out quite well. But of course, towards the end, he finally does make it to the World's End pub, where he's got it laid out. They're like, all right, fine. With welcome, join our club behind him, by the way. Very clever. It's like, okay, drink this pint, then please just succumb, make life happy. Let us all be like, clones. But during the scuffle between him and Andy, we learn actually what he's been doing for the past few years. And he's not been well at all. And this is kind of what I said before. There was something I wanted to talk about towards the end, because before I watched this, I learned through an article that Simon Pegg had gone, I had a big, horrible bout of alcoholism. It wasn't fun, and it did coincide with this film, and watching it with that information really did change it, especially this scene, where it's like, well, what have I got to live for? What have I got out there? Maybe I do these things to forget just how useless I am. And to me, it was almost, is that Gary King talking, or is it Simon Pegg talking? He brought tears to it, and even when I sort of watched it the second time, when I finally kind of like could really get into it, it got me. But this time it got me even more, because I could see what potentially could be a cry for help. He did part write this. It was him and Edgar Wright. So maybe it was him kind of doing like a soft admission, I suppose. If he could put it out in acted form, if he could be a character having issues and drinking to forget his problems, maybe he could do it as a real human. As a real human being behind that character. I mean, maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I do, of course, analyse things quite deeply. But either way, I think it really did change the scene. And not, like I say, not for the worse. It made me more empathetic, I think, towards Gary King in this scene. But like I say, we learn that he just wants to be free, but he was somewhere and he couldn't live how he wanted to be. It ate him up inside. It killed him. It killed the spark. What I was talking about with Shaun of the Dead, that little spark that we need to keep inside of us, the little bit of a child that remains. It was killing that. And for him, he may as well have just been actually killing the whole body as well. But then, of course, they descend and they have the discussion with the light representing the network. Bill Nighy, another staple of the Cornetto Trilogy. And of course, he's saying like, it's just this corporate merger, basically. That's how it's portrayed. It is very much this very, simple, no difference, kind of all very much one type, very peaceful. And the humans get it right. I could say it myself, but I just think how the three guys say it is so much better. So in their own words.
Because we are more belligerent, more stubborn, and more idiotic than you can possibly imagine. And I am not just talking about Gary. We are the human race, and we don't like being told what to do. We want to be free to do what we want to do. Yeah. We want to get loaded. Yeah. And we want to have a good time. And that's what we're going to do.
And that says it all. You know, yeah, we're flawed. We're unique. We fight. We're far from perfect. But that's great. That's what makes us us. And of course they pick apart his argument. How many of you had to replace? You consider it a success the less you have to do. You've pretty much replaced everyone but like 3 people in this town. That's not a success by your books, is it? Let's be honest. But that's what, to me, this film was always about. It was much, you know, about rejecting homogeneity and conformity. But what really spoke to me was that last kind of bit where, yeah, people are awful. Humanity is terrible. We've got so many problems, you'd need an encyclopedia just to get 10% of them down. You know, taking us as a whole. Humanity is awful. We're not great. But we're what we are. We are humanity. And that should be enough. That's what I think really spoke to me in this film. That was my original conceit. And yes, like I say, coming out of it with that idea about, it's rejection of conformity and everything. And starbucking. But yeah, it's about the fact that we're flawed and that's fine. And if that's not a great message to end a trilogy on, because really it applies to everything. Sean's flawed, but he's one of the rare survivors of a zombie apocalypse. Nicholas Angel is flawed. He throws himself too much into his job, but he manages to uncover a weird, awful conspiracy and sort out a village to actually be a nice place to live without all that. Gary King is flawed, but he goes out defending blanks. He becomes a hero in his own story. So yeah, we're flawed, but that's fine. I've really enjoyed these past few weeks, breaking down some of my favourite films for like over a decade all told. I think it's given me a new appreciation for them, and like I say, I'm glad I finally got round to them. I really hope you've all enjoyed it too, and I hope you'll join me next time for something completely different. But until then, as always, take care.